Good morning. I know many of you will be watching this in the afternoon. I'm Jeff Cameron. That's the great Ira Schoffel. And here we are at the Al Dunlap Athletic Training Facility as they wrap up this week the Tour of Duty as we get set for spring football practice. We had a chance, Ira, to be in there inside the practice facility and watch them work out, watch them run, jump, do all that stuff that we're glad we're not having to do at this early morning hour. But I will tell you, I think a few guys stood out, and I think that there's reason to be excited. I pretty much kept my eyes on the newcomers. Who stood out to you? We'll start with you.
Yeah, I mean, I think, we all focus on the newcomers. That's kind of what we do, just because it's the first team. So we've got to see they have 10 transfers on campus for the first time, 12 true freshmen early enrollees. And I think the one thing that stood out right away is how tough it is for those newcomers, especially the early enrollees, the freshmen, to go from a high school strength program or conditioning program to here. And we haven't been out here in 2 years. Last year we weren't able to come out.
Right.
So we were out here 2 years ago when it was new to the whole program. Mike Norvell and Josh Storms, the strength coach, had just brought it here. So everybody was kind of struggling. 2 years later, you see the veterans really excelling. Even the difference between like a guy like last year, Hunter Washington, who was a freshman. This year, he's gone through it before. Now this year, you've got a guy like Azaria Thomas and Sam McCall. And even though those guys are bigger and they may end up being better athletes, I mean, they're big, strong, physical, impressive freshmen. Going through this is obviously an adjustment. So that's the big difference. And the freshmen also don't have their names on their jerseys yet, so they've got to kind of earn their stripes. But, a lot of the returning guys that impressed, Renardo Green, Malcolm Ray, some guys that you'll see, and we'll talk about this later, they were in the black jerseys. Only a few guys are in the black jerseys, which signifies they've had the best off-season conditioning program. And then it's garnet, I believe, and then it goes to white. And then I think there was only one guy in an orange, and we won't name him. But everybody else, looked like you could see the growth from last year especially. Yeah,
and that's partly because, as you just noted, players take over this thing as they get familiarity with it, and they've gone through it. And Coach Storms talked about that. You guys see the video, but he talked about players taking control of this and helping lead from the front and letting the young guys know how to get through this. And so, I think you're seeing that ownership there from the veteran group. I think it's fun when you watch the wide-eyed look on those kids' faces, the young kids coming in here as you're talking about it. I can't imagine it's come so far as a freshman to walk in here out of high school and have to do this, but obviously it'll serve them well as they get set for spring football. I thought, by the way, I'm just going to start here with a couple of guys of the newcomers, if you don't mind. I think we're both going to say it almost in unison. Caden Lyles is a grown man. That is a guy that is unbelievable to look at in person.
And this isn't necessarily going to be his sweet spot, agility drills and all that, but physically.
Oh, my goodness. How imposing. Like, if you want to get excited about an offensive line upgrade, by the way, Bless Harris looked good, too, a big, strong guy. I would just say that when you see Caden Lyles, you realize that guy came here to do work, and I think we'll probably, obviously, knock on wood, stays healthy. He's a guy that you're going to see play an awful lot. I was very impressed with him.
Yeah, and he's, and again, and I think he's did his best work probably in the weight room. We saw him at the squat party the other day, which Josh Storms talked about as well. People can watch that video. But he and Jared Verse, another transfer.
Good call.
Who you look at Jared Verse and you're like, okay, that's an NFL dude. And that's kind of what we said about Jermaine Johnson. He's not built exactly like Jermaine Johnson. He's a little bit thicker. But, dude, I mean, like from a guy, it's hard to believe that guy 2 or 3 years ago, coming out of high school, had very few offers and ended up at Albany. But here he is at Florida State, and he certainly looks the part.
Come a long way from being a high school tight end weighing 200 pounds to what he looks like now. He looks like an NFL player. Josh Storm said that, actually. He looked like a grown man, like a pro football prospect. So hopefully, obviously, he plays like one. He's very mature, very focused. Work ethic is there, so I think everybody's very excited to see what he can do. I'll tell you, I don't know if he stood out for you, but when I look at the twitchiness, the athleticism, the length of a deuce span, again, here's a kid that only had 5 receptions at Illinois. But if he buys into being a receiver, those long arms, that build, he's very quick. I think there's a guy that's maybe a wild card. I think we have some greater certainty with some of the other guys that came in with this receiver group, but he's a guy that, let's see if it happens, but I was very impressed with what I watched out there with him today.
Yeah, no question. He's a guy that and he wasn't even somebody I was looking for necessarily because we thought he was more of a project, but you're like, hey, who's that dude?
Yeah.
And you figure it out pretty quickly. I also some of the returning guys that impressed, I think Dennis Briggs, a big question a lot of people have is, he's making the transition from defensive tackle back to defensive end. He still looks like a big defensive end. I mean, he's kind of built like Keir Thomas was probably a year ago. I wonder if maybe they'll still drop a few pounds for him, but he definitely looks like he could play defensive end. He doesn't. I think some people are concerned, is he going to be a defensive tackle, a defensive end? I think he's starting to look like a defensive end again.
Yeah, he's got time. And, we had yesterday, I had the good fortune of having Adam Fuller on the show, and he talked about Joshua Farmer getting up to 300 pounds. Yeah, he is. He's 300 pounds. There's no doubt he's definitely that size. I know fans latched on to that. I think, if anything, he could probably drop a few lbs, but he's bigger. He's a lot bigger. So you want to work with that in spring anyhow. You got time for it. We've got a lot of things to go over. We'll do it throughout the course of the week, obviously leading on up into spring practice. There'll be articles, videos. I'll talk about it later on in the Jeff Cameron Show today from 1 to 3. Wake Up Warchant, we'll have more tomorrow. So you guys, as always, tune in.
Look first for the observations. We've got observations on the freshmen, the transfers, and also the returning players. Those will be up on the Tribal Council and the message boards.
Perfect.
And we have stories coming as well.
For Ira Schoffel, I'm Jeff Cameron. Thanks so much for watching Warchant TV, and subscribe to warchant.com.